Hey there, YouTube! Before I get into the video, let me remind you that if you like my videos, hit that like and subscribe button, and also if you feel the need to support me, hit me up on my Patreon at patreon.com/uncommonramen, capital U, capital R. I do all of this in my free time, so any amount of support can help me bring more of this content to you more often. Okay, today we are going to be looking at Ghave, or Ghave, or however you want to pronounce it, Guru of Spores. This was a deck that I actually had no intention of making, except that I accidentally bought the secret lair for it. And by that, I mean I put it into my cart with a bunch of other secret lairs from that series, and then forgot to remove this one for some reason. So I ended up getting it and deciding that it was time to do something with it. So Ghave is an Abzan commander for 2, a white, a black, and a green. He enters the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 counters on him, and for 1 you can remove a +1/+1 counter from him to create, or is it on a creature you control? From a creature you control. You can pay 1 to remove a +1/+1 counter from a creature you control to create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token. You can also pay 1 to sacrifice a creature to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So what we're going to do here is more of a aristocrats type strategy. So we're just going to look at the creature base here. There's a lot of them. So let me find out where they separate. Yeah. Okay, cool. We're going to start with the Corpsejack Menace for 2, a green, and a black. It's a 4/4. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be placed on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are placed instead. We got Deathspore Thallid for 1 and a black. It is a 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a spore counter on Deathspore Thallid. You can remove 3 spore counters from Deathspore Thallid to create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token, and you can sacrifice a Sapperling to create, and then target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. That's very strange language. We got Ellis Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim. This is a white and a black for a 2/2 with Death Touch. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life, and whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life. Next, we have Evolution Sage for 2 and a green. This is a 3/2 with landfall. Whenever a land enters a battle under your control, proliferate. It doesn't have the landfall tag, but this was before they decided that essentially that anything like that was going to get its namesake. We got Heart of Specs that is 3 and a green for a 2/2. It has Rapacious Hunger. Whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Harspecs, and it has Devouring Monster. You can tap and remove X +1/+1 counters from Harspecs to add X mana of any one color to your mana pool. We got Mazrek, Crawl Death Priest for 3, a black and a green. This is a 2/2. It has Flying. Whenever a player sacrifices another permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. We've got Mycologist for 1 and a white is a 0/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put a spore counter on Mycologist. Remove 3 spore counters from Mycologist to create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token, and sacrifice Sapperling to gain 2 life. We got Michaeloth for 3 and 2 green. It is a 4/4, and it has Devour 2, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token for each +1/+1 counter on Michaeloth. We got Namada, Primeval Warden for 2, a black and a green. This is a 3/4 with Reach. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token, and for 1 green, you can sacrifice a Sapperling to give Namada, Primeval Warden +2/+2 until end of turn, and then for 1 and a black, you can sacrifice 2 Sapperling to draw a card. Next up, we got Pallid Mycoderm. Pallid Mycoderm for 3 and a white. It's a 2/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a spore counter on Pallid Mycoderm. Remove 3 Spore counters from Pallid Mycoderm to put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield, and then sacrifice a Saproling. Each creature you control that's a fungus or Saproling gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Got Psychotrope Thallid for 2 and a green. It's a 1/1 at the beginning of your upkeep. Put a Spore counter on Psychotrope Thallid. Remove 3 Spore counters from Psychotrope Thallid. Put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield. And for 1, you can sacrifice a Saproling to draw a card. We got Rot Shambler for 1 and a green. It's a 1/1. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Rot Shambler. Got Savage Thallid for 3 and 2 greens, a 5/2 at the beginning of your upkeep. Put a Spore counter on Savage Thallid. You can remove 3 Spore counters from Savage Thallid to put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield, and you can sacrifice a Saproling to regenerate target fungus. Got Slimefoot the Stowaway for 1, a black and a green. This is a 2/3. When a Saproling you control dies, Slimefoot the Stowaway deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. And you can pay 1 black, I think that is. That is very difficult to tell. Or maybe you just tap him. I'd have to look at the actual card. I can't believe I don't actually remember that. You get to create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. Sorry for the random cards. I had to use this secret layer, otherwise it was just going to sit in my binder. So next up, we got Spore Crown Thallid for 1 and a green. It's 2/2. Each other creature you control that is a fungus or Saproling gets +1/+1. Got Spore Mound for 3 and 2 green. It's a 3/3 with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. Got Spore Sower Thallid for 2 and 2 green. It's a 4/4 at the beginning of your upkeep. Put a Spore counter on each fungus you control. Remove 3 Spore counters from Spore Sower Thallid to create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. Got Spurloth Ancient for 3 and 2 green. It's a 4/4 at the beginning of your upkeep. Put a Spore counter on Spurloth Ancient. Creatures you control have removed 2 Spore counters from this creature to add a 1/1 green Saproling creature token to the battlefield. Got Tendershoot Dryad for 4 and a green. It's a 2/2. It has Ascend. And at the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. And Saprolings you control get +2/+2 as long as you have the City's Blessing. We have Thallid for 1 green. It's a 1/1. During your upkeep, put a Spore counter on Thallid. You can remove 3 Spore counters from Thallid to put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield. We got Thallid Germinator for 2 and a green. It's a 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a Spore counter on Thallid Germinator. You can remove 3 Spore counters from Thallid Germinator to put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield, and you can sacrifice a Saproling. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Got Thallid Shell Dweller for 1 and a green. It's a 0/5 with Defender. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a Spore counter on Thallid Shell Dweller. Remove 3 Spore counters from Thallid Shell Dweller. Put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield. Got Thallid Soothsayer for 3 and a black. It's a 2/3. You can pay 2 and sacrifice a creature to draw a card. Got Felon of Havenwood. This is 2 green for a 2/2. Each fungus you control, or each fungus. It's not just you control. Each fungus gets +1/+1 for each Spore counter on it. And for a black and a green, remove a fungus card in a graveyard from the game. Put a Spore counter on each fungus in play. Got Felonite Hermit for 3 and a green. It's a 1/1. Saproling creatures get +1/+1. Has Morph for 3 and 2 green. And when Felonite Hermit is turned face up, put 4 1/1 green Saproling creature tokens onto the battlefield. Got Underseller Myconid. It is 2 and a green for a 1/2. Whenever Underseller Myconid enters the battlefield or dies, create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token, and you can tap it for 1 mana of any one color. Got Utopia Mycon for 1 green. It's a 0/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a Spore counter on Utopia Mycon. Remove 3 Spore counters from Utopia Mycon. Create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token, and then sacrifice a Saproling to add 1 mana of any one color. Got Verdant Force for 5 and 3 green. It's a 7/7. At the beginning of each upkeep, put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield. Vitaspore Thallid for 1 and a green. It's a 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a Spore counter on Vitaspore Thallid. Remove 3 Spore counters from Vitaspore Thallid to put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield, and then sacrifice the Saproling. Target creature gains haste until end of turn. think this is the last card. No, second to last card. Winding Constrictor for 1 black and 1 green. It's a 2/3. If one or more counters would be placed on an artifact or creature you control, that many of those counters +1 are placed on that permanent instead. If you would get one or more counters, you get that many of those counters +1 instead. And then finally, we have Zulaport Cutthroat for 1 and a black. It's a 1/1. When Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. So that's our creature base. We're going to move into the instance. Starting with Aura Mutation for 1 green and 1 white. Destroy target enchantment. Put X 1/1 green sapling creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is its converted mana cost. We got Death Sprout for 1 and 2 black and a green. Oh my gosh. Destroy target creature. Search your library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Got Fungal Rebirth for 2 and a green. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If a creature died this turn, create 2 1/1 green sapling creature tokens. Got Putrefy for 1 black and 1 a black and a green. Destroy target artifact or creature can't be regenerated. Can't talk today. We got Second Harvest for 2 and 2 green. For each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. Got Seed Spark for 3 and a white. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. If green was spent to play Seed Spark, put 2 1/1 green sapling creature tokens onto the battlefield. We got Spore Swarm for 3 and a green. Create 3 1/1 green sapling creature tokens. We got Sprout Swarm for 1 and a green with Convoke. It has buyback for 3, and put a 1/1 green sapling creature token into play. We got Swords to Plowshares, 1 white. Exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Next up, we're going to take a look at sorceries. Starting with Cultivate for 2 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards. Put 1 onto the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, then shuffle. Next up, we have Eerie Ultimatum for 2 white, 3 black, and 2 green. Return any number of permanent cards with different names from your graveyard to the battlefield. Got Farseek for 1 and a green. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card. Put that onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Got Fungal Sprouting for 3 and a green. Put X 1/1 green sapling creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Got Kodama's Reach for 2 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards, put 1 onto the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, then shuffle. Got Rampant Growth for 1 and green. Search your library for a basic land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Got Sapperling Migration for 1 and a green. Has a kicker cost of 4. Create 2 1/1 green Sapperling creature tokens. If the spell is kicked, create 4 of those tokens instead. We got Sapperling Symbiosis, which I believe is the last one. For 3 and a green, you may cast Sapperling Symbiosis as though it had flash. If you pay 2 more to cast it, create a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token for each creature you control. Okay, next up is Artifacts. Starting with an Arcane Signet for 2. You can tap this to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. We got Ashnod's Altar for 3. You can sacrifice a creature to add 2 colorless. Got Druidic Satchel for 3. You can pay 2 and tap it to reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token onto the battlefield. If it's a land, put that card onto the battlefield under your control. If it's a non-creature, non-land card, you gain 2 life. Next up, we have Golgari Signet for 2. You can pay 1 and tap it to add black or green. Got Skull Clamp, costs 1. Equipped creature gets +1/-1. Whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. Equips for 1. Finally, we got Soul Ring, costs 1. You can tap it to add 2 colorless. Okay, next up is Enchantments. Starting with Anointed Procession for 3 and a white. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. Next we have Cathar's Crusade for 3 and 2 white. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. We got Doubling Season for 4 and a green. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many tokens instead. If an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many of those counters on the permanent instead. We got Fungal Plots for 1 and a green. For 1 and a green, you can exile a creature card from your graveyard, create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token, and you can sacrifice 2 Saproling to gain 2 life and draw a card. We got Golgari Germination for 1, a black and a green. Whenever a non-token creature you control is put into a graveyard from play, put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield. We got Moldervine Reclamation for 3, a black and a green. Whenever a creature you control dies, gain 1 life and draw a card. Got Necrogenesis for 1 black and 1 green. You can pay 2 to remove target creature card in a graveyard from the game to put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield. We got Parallel Lives for 3 and a green. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. We got Tokasia's Welcome for 2 and a white. Whenever 1 or more creatures with mana value 3 or less enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability only triggers once each turn. And then I believe this is the last one. Yeah, Verdant Embrace for 3 and 2 green. It is a enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and has, at the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. Okay, next up is Planeswalkers. We have Kaya Geist Hunter. This is 1, a white and a black. Enters the battlefield with 3 loyalty counters for +1. You can create creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature token you control. -2 until end of turn. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. And then -6 is to exile all cards from all graveyards. Then create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying for each card exiled this way. Okay, next up is the non-basic lands, starting with Canopy Vista. This is a check land. Yep, check land for white-green, and it has basic land typings. We have a Command Tower, which you can tap to add mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Deathcap Glade, which is a check land for black-green. Got Evolving Wilds, which you can tap and sacrifice to search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Got Gavany Township. You can tap it for colorless, or you can tap 2, a white and a green, and tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Got Godless Shrine, which is a shock land for white-black and has basic land typings. We've got Golgari Rot Farm, which is a bounce land for black and green. We've got Indatha Triome, which is a Triome for white, black, and green and has basic land typings and also has cycling. We've got Karn's Bastion, which you can tap for colorless, or you can pay 4 and tap it to proliferate. We've got Oran Reef, the Vast Wood, which enters the battlefield tapped. It can be tapped for green, or you can tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on each green creature that entered the battlefield this turn. We've got Overgrown Tomb, which is a shock land for black-green, and it also has basic land typings. We've got Sandstep Citadel, which is a Triome for white, black, and green. We've got Selesnya Sanctuary, which is a bounce land for green-white, sorry. We've got Sun Petal Grove, which is a check land for green-white. We've got Temple Garden, which is a shock land for green-white and has basic land typings. Terramorphic Expanse, which you can tap and sacrifice to search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Got Vitu-Ghazi, the City Tree, which you can tap for colorless, or you can tap 2, a green and white, and tap it to put a 1/1 green Saproling creature token onto the battlefield. And then I believe, last but not least, we have Woodland Cemetery, which is a check land for black and green. So the last thing we're going to look at is the basic lands. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 forests. We have 1, 2 plains, and 1, 2, 3, 4 swamps. So that's going to be the Ghave, or Ghave, however you want to put it. Saproling are kind of aristocrats. There's several pieces in here that allow us to gain life for permanents being put onto the battlefield. There's a lot of pieces in here that make our opponents lose life. We have lots of doubling effects in here. Lots of effects that allow us to sacrifice creatures to draw cards. Very interesting mana base for dumping +1/+1 counters. There's a couple of things that can go infinite in here with Ghave or Ghave or whatever. Ultimately, though, it's just meant to dump out a lot of Saproling tokens and then find a way to sacrifice those to kill everybody at the table. So yeah, Ghave or Ghave. You guys can tell me what it actually is in the comments down below. Please keep it positive. I'll remove negative comments. And that's it, guys. Until next time, peace.